All right. It's 7/11, 2025 here, and we're going to talk about a couple of things today. This is James Griffin, and Nick Murata had some stuff going on today, so Manny decided to step in. You might be asking yourself, who is this Manny guy? Um, yeah, Manny, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that, James. My name is Manny Ortiz. I am the most recent managing partner to join YMW Advisors. Before coming to YMW, I spent a dozen years at Schwab as a financial consultant and advisor. And then most recently, I spent the last couple of years at JP Morgan Private Bank. What I'm excited about today, and I know you're excited about today, is talking about the One Big Beautiful Bill and understanding kind of what this means for our investors and our clients and our families. And I know we have a deck that we're going to go through, but we're going to share some things that we believe impact portfolios now, soon, and later. And we're going to go through that today. So, Griff, if you want to kind of kick us off here, and we'll go through this piece by piece.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. We'll get going on this. I guess before we get into anything, we always like to make sure we disclose that this, video today is for more of a entertainment purposes. There's no specific legal or financial advice given to you. Um, so obviously there'll be many things that you could bring up and chat about as it pertains to your situation with us, but wouldn't take any recommendation directly from today's conversation. So let's get into it. What's just happened? What was the timeline there? So yeah, obviously over the 4th of July weekend, after many deliberations back and forth between the House and Senate, on the 4th, there was a tie-breaking vote by J.D. Vance to get this big, beautiful bill passed through. And so this probably, as it shows here on the screen, this probably represents one of the biggest, wins right here from a legislative standpoint for Trump's second term, right? A lot of things involved though. So, personal taxation, business taxation, a lot of spending, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some people love spending. I know I do. Some people don't love spending. And I, what I think is most important than anything here is understanding the impact of this spend over time. More than anything, I think that if we go to the next page, we can start kind of looking at what some of these tax cuts mean. What are some of the new things that are coming? What's staying the same? And ultimately, what's changing down the road? But let's start with like the very, very first thing. And I'd say the most impactful thing is that really nothing's changing, right? So from 2017, the tax cuts that we had are now permanent. At least during this administration, they're going to be permanent for the next couple of years. Griff, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, these are kind of what you would consider, invisible wins, right? So, as a lot of you probably remember, or maybe you don't remember, at the, end of this year, a lot of these tax cuts were to expire. So that means that brackets would be changing, and ultimately people would be paying more for personal income tax. So yeah, that's the first thing. It's a permanent tax provision that's been put in place. It's permanent as, our legislation system will allow it to be, right?
Yeah, I think also part of it kind of locks in what Trump had coming in as part of what he thought of legacy, right? It really favors more of the middle and upper class families. It's a really big win for wealthy households in the most part, for the most part, especially with the state tax changes that we'll talk about in a moment. Uh, but it definitely makes the U.S. tax system way more generous, at least in the short term. But it will become more expensive long term to us as a country. Uh, but overall, I think that the markets are embracing the fact that no news is good news, right? I think that's kind of the main takeaway from this.
Yeah,
Uh,
permanent tax provisions are pretty much status quo. I think the child tax credit increase kind of ties along with that Trump account with increasing, the incentives to have kids to an extent. But to your point, the permanent tax provisions aren't really a huge shakeup there.
Yeah, as far as the tax credit, not a huge change there.
Yeah.
The estate tax, we have a slight increase in that. But then we kind of move on to some of the more headline uh, things that the administration was talking about while they were running the campaign. Obviously, tax-free tips was a big one. It made the rounds towards the end of the election, the last few months. A lot of people seem to embrace that. Uh, you know, I'd say that overall, this is very popular with a lot of people. It obviously, I would say, conveniently expires at the end of Trump's at the end of Trump's term. Uh, it's what we would consider more of a front loading of this credit. Uh, but for now, and obviously people like the idea of it, and even if it's temporary, it does offer some relief for some people. But it also sets up a really big political discussion in a few years when it's set to expire. And what do you do with that, right? So in 2028, somebody's going to have to make a decision on whether they want to keep this going or if something else is going to happen. But there's different phase outs, there's different income limits, but it will help the service industry at least in the short term.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about, and not that I've, if I could work for cash tips here, I might consider doing so, but not that I work for tips, but like you think some of these tips probably don't go reported. So it's going to be interesting to see what people do. Do you report those tips for the next 3 years? Take the waiver of taxes, and then, what if this gets dropped, right? And then they look back at your earnings over the previous years, and you had reported this. So it almost seems like some of those folks not need to think through that a little bit. The other thing here to think about with this senior deduction is that folks that are over 65, heading into that decade prior to RMD age, this could open up the opportunity to have a little more wiggle room for some distribution strategies to either, from a legacy standpoint, convert some dollars to Roth for maybe legacy planning or longevity and deferring out taxes, or it could just be a look at maybe pulling some income forward through IRA distribution. So, interesting planning opportunity there, and lots of things to consider.
Yeah, no, I really like out of all these provisions, I'd say that this is the one that for us as planners gives us a really good opportunity to start thinking a little bit more creatively. It certainly is something that uh, for in our planning discussions will be top of mind, especially once you get into that 65. If you're 65 right now, right, going to 2026, it certainly offers you a couple of years where you can start maybe looking to make some immediate changes. But again, just like the tax on tips, there's a cliff on this, right? So it's a very finite window where you have a few years to make these deductions happen and make them impact your plan long term. So as we kind of move on to some more of the special interest tax provisions, there's a couple really interesting changes here. Which one kind of stands out to you, Griff?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, folks on the coast would probably benefit more from the salt cap temporary relief there over the next couple of years. Um, to me, actually, more visually speaking, I think like this Trump account. I mean, it's kind of funny that it's named a Trump account, but I think the idea of, starting an account for, newborns that allows for them to have some flexibility and some deferral of investment gains is a really good idea. We have some other types of accounts out there, but I like the idea of letting this $1,000 grow in U.S. Companies. So I know it's more visual right now. I don't know if that $1,000 is going to make a huge impact down the road. But yeah, that's something to me, at least stylistically. I feel like it's a pretty cool little idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I hadn't really thought of this obviously myself. I'm not in politics. I'm not looking for a way to round up votes, but this is certainly something that I think both sides of the aisle can get behind is putting kids on the right path, and I don't think that I can disagree, right, with putting kids ahead. I know personally, I never had a head start. I had to earn everything I have, and this certainly would have made a difference because you start thinking, okay, 18 years from now, 20 years from now, and the compounding effect of this, it can certainly be very impactful. I'd also say that, you know, the auto loan interest and the SALT cap, it's very targeted, right? Like you when you kind of start looking into this and you look at who actually needs these or implements these, you look at the income limits. It's a nod to car buyers, right? Kind of trying to stimulate something there, especially locally. And we'll talk a little bit more about EV credits here pretty soon. But this is a nod to car buyers. It's also a nod to upper middle income earners in high tax states with the
Yep.
temporary salt cap relief. I know that in earlier versions of the bill, they wanted this to be a lot higher than it is, and they kind of settled on 40,000. It's still, a pretty significant increase from the 10,000 that it is now, but ultimately, it's really to win some votes across multiple groups of people, but again, not permanent. These are not permanent again, and it's just kicking the can down the road on some of these things for future administrations and politicians to have to discuss this. I know that will 100% be a point of contention when it's set to expire, if it's going to get renewed for the same amount or if it's going to be a higher amount or a lower amount. So anyway, just my 2 cents on these.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing to add on those Trump accounts is as a business owner, they do have a deductible component in there that gives the business owner the ability to make tax deductible contributions to those. So who knows when this thing gets cleared up through the system at where we can start opening these accounts and whatnot. But anyways, if we, I don't think we have any babies in the pipeline here at the company, but you know,
No babies. No, no,
we'll see. We'll see.
no babies.
Yeah. So one of the things I like as far as other tax changes here, so people that are not able to itemize now can contribute $1,000 as an individual filer or 2,000 as a couple, and it allows them to deduct that. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, being able to contribute to causes that are important to you, I think, is a great way to give back, and it feels good too.
Yeah, no, I listen, I've been a big believer in charitable giving. I've done that for years. Obviously, I do it through a donor advised fund, which, if you have questions on that, either James or myself or any of our financial planners can certainly dig in regarding uh, advisory donor advisor accounts and the importance of that and how it ultimately can help your taxes and defer taxes over multiple tax years. But ultimately, this is great, right? So it's an opportunity to be able to give to something that's important to you, a qualified charity. It also kind of reflects the administration's priorities, which is kind of rewarding giving, right? And they also have the flip side of this, which is kind of hitting endowments, green energy, those other things are getting impacted to some extent, and it's really coming off the back of them, right? So you have to find a balance. But with green energy specifically, we look at kind of phasing out of the $7,500 electric vehicle credit. I'm sure topical news is the fallout, right, between Elon and Trump regarding mainly something like this. And it certainly impacts certain segments of the market. But at the end of the day, the mindset of the current administration is a growth path, and they just don't believe that this is going to lead that way. Regarding endowments, we have wealthy colleges, and obviously, again, another very targeted administration issue is targeting wealthy colleges, and that's really what this is as well. Is being able the administration found a way to include things that kind of impact certain institutions that maybe don't align with what they are looking to accomplish. Whether that's right or wrong is not up for discussion with us today, but that is really what is ultimately getting impacted here.
Yeah. So a big key here is if you were interested in a EV vehicle, then you should probably look at, doing that prior to the end of September. And then if you're interested in any kind of project around the house that involves energy efficiencies, could be doors, windows, electric heat pumps, those sorts of things. I think they have till the end of the year to be able to use those credits. So, if you have something that's barely hanging on, this might be the time to go out there and take advantage of that before it gets dropped.
Yeah, one last thing here before we kind of move on. I'd say that what didn't make the cut, I found it very interesting that there was a rise in taxes for private foundations, and that ultimately didn't happen. I find it very interesting, simply because we know who gives right to political action committees, and our big donors are a lot of private foundations. So
Yeah.
really, I don't think surprise to anyone that that didn't make the cut on the final bill. But as we move on to the next part of this is what does it ultimately mean in big numbers? And these are really, really big numbers, right? So we look at 150 billion spending in defense, 125 billion in border security, and we'll kind of put a pause before we move on to what the 5 trillion and 3.3 trillion mean. But just here alone, uh, James and I were actually looking a little bit earlier at defense companies and kind of how they've been performing. Uh, Ultimately, a lot of these defense companies have seen a lot of inflows over the course of this year, and that has to do with the current administration and the expectation of this bill. And this certainly is fuel to the fire. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I think we were looking at one of these major aerospace and defense ETFs before this call, and I think year to date the S&P 500 is up around 6%, 7%, something like that after the drawdown from the Liberation Day. And year
Yeah,
to date, that defense ETF, I think it's up 30%,
yeah,
around. So think of the, Lockheed Martin, GE Aerospace, companies like that, that at least the company, or at least the investor population feels is a good place to be right now in this administration. So
certainly.
interesting move there.
Yeah, it's certainly like it's more of like a doubling down, right, for the administration on everything they've said through the campaign. They're doubling down on strong military, strong borders. It's really about security here at home, sovereignty. It's just this is kind of what this part of the bill is about. And as we kind of look to the next part of it and the debt ceiling hike, again, this is more of slightly kicking the can down the road. This is still going to be within the administration. This debt ceiling hike is going to be going into the next presidential election, but it's a bombshell, right? Like $5 trillion is not a drop in the bucket. For now, it avoids another shutdown, which the market likes. But the trade-off is that, $3.3 trillion has been added to the deficit. And ultimately, I would say it's more of a contradiction, right, to the GOP's base and kind of what they're about and fiscal responsibility. So just very interesting the dynamic there, and I know that there was a lot of discussion leading up to this about those two oil and water, right, kind of thinking mindsets. Do we increase and spend, and like where do we get this money from, and reconciliation of that, and the reconciliation really came at the hands of most of this Medicaid and SNAP programs, some of those were reduced. Uh, but that's kind of where that's coming from. So what do you think about this part of the bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the market probably looks at that debt ceiling resolution positively. I mean, even though the picture here that Nick gave us doesn't look very positive, everyone looks really confused, and I don't know if something's fallen from the sky there. But I think that the debt ceiling resolution does feel like a good thing overall for the market. It's a kick the can type of thing. How long does this continue? I mean, as long as the economy is rolling, as long as people are employed and companies are, generating profits, I guess this thing keeps going. I mean, I always say we got to do something about it at some point, right?
Yeah, and I think what they're looking at is the chart of the defense ETF just going through the roof. That's probably what they're looking at in this picture. But certainly, Act One is right now, right? This is part one of the game plan: tax relief, big wins, being able to get it through the Senate and the House, and everybody was seemingly in line. So I think that's a big part. I think part two comes later, and the reckoning of this will happen a few years down the road as those kind of perks start expiring and we have some type of a political showdown coming toward the end of the current administration's time. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so kind of some wrapping things up here, I think, obviously as the debt ceiling is to kick the can down the road, but big picture, taxes, historically speaking, and even globally speaking, are probably the lowest or close to the lowest they've been uh, in debt forever, really. I mean, this is probably the most favorable tax environment we've been in. And so what I would start thinking through is like in our next meeting with you, or if just watching this off of YouTube, then I would say, start thinking through what you could be doing to maybe pull taxes forward or position yourself to take advantage of these. Now, does anyone have a crystal ball to see how long this will go? I mean, that's, I don't think I do, but there are some ways to hedge or at least take advantage of some of these opportunities. So, if haven't already done so, I'd say reach out, set some times for us to talk and play through these different scenarios in your plan and see what might work for you.
yeah, I know I will. I've been talking to my clients about this pretty regularly over the last week. And I know that it'll be a big topic of the discussion through the rest of this year, especially as we kind of wrap up summer and we go to the later stages of this year. This will become more and more a topic of discussion. So we really, really appreciate your time today and taking a few minutes to sit with us and go through this. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we're here for you, YNW Advisors here in Florida. So we appreciate you. Take care.